Violet was the majority shareholder and de facto leader of a manufacturer for humanoid robots. He was apparently a fighter in the past, but now lived a quiet life in a mansion in the Bahamas. Bored by his carefree lifestyle, Violet decided to enter the King of Iron Fist Tournament 4. There was another significant reason for his entry into the tournament. Violet believed that he could turn his humanoid robots into the ultimate fighting weapons. He believed in a utopian world where inorganic humanoids would carry out the will of their human masters. Violet accelerated the development of a prototype for the tournament. If completed in time, the tournament would be an excellent PR opportunity. Violet's mind was filled with visions of dominating the King of Iron Fist Tournament 4.
Hey everyone, welcome back with Abino Mac. Today we're going to continue our playthrough of Tekken 4. As you can see, we are playing as the new character to the series, completely new, never been in the games before ever, Violet. I believe this is actually, a legacy character for, what's that guy's name? I don't know. Maybe they'll bring him up later or something like that, but, this is actually based off of a character that was in Tekken 1 and 2, I believe. Oof. The Bulldog. It's not often you're able to, rip out those behind grapples in these games. Plus, I just love that grapple in particular because I've gotten so many people in which, you snap the neck and they think they survived, but then they smack onto the ground and they find out they were not as lucky as they thought.
Round 1. Fight.
But yeah, last episode I ended it by saying that I would talk about what I think about this character and the stories and stuff like that in the modern Tekken games. Well, first off, I don't know why, but they kind of introduced this new Violet character to the game, and he never really returned for some reason. He was in Tekken Tag Tournament 2, actually, I believe, but other than that, he was just kind of cut from the story after this game.
Round 2.
But, yeah, I think what I like about this game and why, I think it sets up the story so well for Tekken 5. I think Tekken 5 wouldn't have been as good story-wise if it wasn't set up so perfectly in Tekken 4 with a lot of the plot lines that were going on in this game. I think that was quite an outro. I think the character, the character motivations are so much better in this game in comparison to a lot of the Tekken games. Of course, at the end of the day, it's here's my reasoning for entering the King of Iron Fist tournament this year or whatever. But I do feel like they've given every character kind of a reason to exist in this game instead of just, I was watching TV and, I seen there was a commercial on for the King of Iron Fist tournament. I got nothing else going on, might as well, I guess I might as well go out and prove I'm the best fighter in the world for no reason, I guess. And there's still some joke endings to certain characters in this game, but it's few and far between. So, as we've seen with Hwoarang's ending last playthrough, that actually has effect on the story, and
Round 1. Fight.
I think that's just really cool, and that's how a lot of characters are. A lot of the endings in this game actually have the characters, grow. They aren't just stagnant like they would become in later entries, or just, kind of like, oh well, they beat their motivation, so here's them essentially winning. But it's non-canon, of course, because of course it's not. It is, or of course it's not canon or whatever. Whereas, there is a little bit of that in this game, no doubt, but it definitely felt like they were trying to create more of a cohesive story to carry on into the next game. Whereas a lot of Tekken 5, they have some pretty decent prologues, but then it just kind of ends with some goofy some goofiness, you know, back to the usual Tekken joke endings and stuff like that. For some characters, I don't mind that. There are a lot of joke characters in general in the series. My issue with it is, you know, I just wish that some characters would grow. We could see some new things with, you know, new direction with a lot of characters, and not just, you know, like in Tekken 7, for example, it kind of just stopped the Yoshimitsu and Bryan Fury storyline, and admittedly they should have. I mean, by Tekken 6, I mean, it already played its role, but, you know, they kind of just, there was no thought put into what these characters are doing in that game story mode. They were all just one fights instead of the actual full arcade mode for whatever reason, which is weird because they actually do have an arcade mode in that game. But they just called it story battles. I think maybe 1 or 2 fights in that game may have contributed to something that would come into Tekken 8 later on or whatever. But for the most part, if you were not, I mean, there is the complaint in which if you are not a member of the core Mishima family, you're just not important at all. I mean, that rings true, unfortunately, in these days. I mean, they're even apparently bringing back Heihachi, even though he was supposed to be dead in Tekken 7. And not even as like a, non-canon playable character. From what I've seen, you know, I haven't played Tekken 8, so I haven't even done the DLC or anything like that. Got to get myself familiar on the story, though. But, yeah, it's... Apparently he's just coming back because they wanted him to. I think a lot of people complain about remakes and remasters and all this other stuff. I feel like fighting game franchises, Mortal Kombat and Tekken in particular, are very... they're kind of the opposite aspect of they're not being remade or whatever, but they're getting very stagnant because they refuse to have the series grow. You know, they refuse to have characters die and move on and all that sort of stuff. And, you know, I get it. You know, if Heihachi's a major character, I mean, it would suck if my favorite character didn't make the cut in the next game or whatever. But that doesn't mean they have to be cut from the game. It just means they don't have to have any story relevance. A lot of people seem to be up in arms because Asuka Kazama, who isn't introduced until the next game, but, you know, they say that they're tired of her affiliation with Lily and they want her to be a bigger part of the story, and they've just yet to make that a thing, unfortunately, which... I don't know what to think about that, you know, I mean, here's the thing, I'm not going to say I know what the game's direction needs to be, and Tekken is one of those series, undisputably. Once again, I haven't played 8, but I played pretty much every single game except for 8. I just don't have a PS5, so I can't really talk about that much. But every single game in the series, I mean, the gameplay has constantly improved. So as far as its gameplay, fantastic. I mean, it's just definitely one of the best fighting game series of all time. Hence why it's still, you know, a big deal today. But I don't know, it's just, at one point, I know a lot of people always say the fighting game stories don't matter, fighting games never had good stories. My argument to that is yes, there were simple stories and stuff like that. Yes, you know, they didn't have the story modes back at this time that they do now, but just because it's a little more complicated and they have cutscenes and stuff like that, doesn't mean that they're good stories. And on top of that, I mean, just because it doesn't mean that these are bad stories, it's because they're simpler stories. I feel like a lot of people underestimate how entertaining simple stories can be. But I don't know, I'm in the minority, so.
20 years ago, Lee was expelled from the Mishima Zaibatsu when he betrayed Heihachi and sided with Kazuya at the King of Iron Fist Tournament 2. Thoughts of revenge consumed Lee for a long time, but eventually he realized that it was pointless to kill an old man, who probably only had a few years left in his life at best. With that epiphany, Lee distanced himself from fighting and moved to a mansion in the Bahamas to lead a solitary life. one day he discovered a huge sell-off of G Corporation's stock. Lee's intuition told him that something happened within the company. His intuition was correct. The Mishima Zaibatsu attacked G Corporation and caused significant damage to their research facilities. He also learned that the Mishima Zaibatsu was searching for a critical component needed to complete one of their projects. Oddly enough, an announcement was made for the King of Iron Fist Tournament 4 around the same time. Lee's fading passion for fighting was rekindled, along with his resentment towards the Mishima clan. Lee decides to enter the tournament under disguise in order to prevent the Mishima Zaibatsu from discovering his true identity.
But I don't know. I think people. I find it interesting that at times people will say how it was boring back in the day, but then I think I agree having characters interact on screen with each other. Like I think Mortal Kombat does it very well. I actually like Mortal Kombat 11's story up until around the ending and the Chronica stuff or Chronica, whatever you want to call it. But I don't know. I think a lot of people mistake the lack of the story being in your face as bad storytelling. And what I mean by that is, as you've seen this whole, the two prologues that we went on, Lee actually has, quite a bit of motivation and stuff like that. They gave him a reason to fight. They have, things, it's motivation is what I'm saying. And I don't know, even, I'll give you credit on the Mortal Kombat story. After the arcade era, they got very finicky with it at times. A lot of retcons all across the board and stuff like that. But just because it's a little more complicated doesn't mean they ever actually add anything that really makes the characters special or anything like that, I think Mortal Kombat 9 did a fantastic job with the arcade endings and stuff like that, and giving us, more backstory and information on the characters and stuff like that. But that said, you look at a lot of the new stuff in the Tekken stories and stuff like that, we're not really given much. Like, what really happened in Tekken 7's story when you think about it? Sure, there might be a few interesting events and led up to some interesting fights, but, and then it was just turned out to be a slap in the face. If it's true that, I seen the trailer of him getting back up and breathing again and stuff like that, if it's true, I think it's just so lame. Like, it's a slap in the face to have Heihachi return after he was supposed to die in that game. That's not a good storytelling.
Thank you all. Thank you for your applause. But winning the tournament was not my ultimate goal. I participated in the tournament to gather test data for Combat and to promote its application as the ultimate fighting machine. I present to you now Combat. Give these nice folks a little demonstration. Damn it.
I don't know why, as a kid, I kind of still do think it's pretty cool. The perspective of just the robot chasing after you and all that other stuff. I thought this was one of the coolest scenes, and it's a little funny as well. But I don't know, I've kind of bitched about the Tekken stories and I was so damn close. But I bitch about the stories and stuff like that a bit much. And if you do like the modern stories, we just have differences in, tastes and stories and stuff like that. Like I said, I like simpler stories. And I think that's when a lot of fighting games excel, but I think a lot of people... Jeez, I'm hitting my ass. Damn. But I think a lot of people don't like simple stories and just kind of write them off as bad or whatever. But if you agree down below, tell me what your thoughts on the Tekken stories are and stuff like that. But I do believe, I'll say this last point actually, and then I'll move on, but I think more slap to the faces as far as story goes is Mortal Kombat, just because every time they set the story up for something, then they just ended up changing it the next game and all the retcons and stuff like that. So I don't know. Once again, there's slaps in the face to people who want to enjoy those stories or are looking forward to the next game story and stuff like that. So I think, just to me, a lot of fighting game stories have just, I think they've just kind of lost the plot in a lot of ways. They don't want to change things, and when they do, it's always in a way of, well, you know, nothing actually ever changes the status quo. And I think that's why a lot of things get stagnant in series like this. Like, they might as well just kind of take the story out of, like, modern fighting games if you're just gonna do that, or just present them all, finish up the story in the next game. Like, hey, we're just gonna make non-canon storylines all these games. You might as well. But I don't know. Once again, I mean, when you change everything and things get constantly retconned, I mean, that's not really good storytelling in my opinion. But like I said, I bitched it long enough, and this video's almost over, so promise in the next set of episodes I will not bring up and bitch about stories and stuff like that. I'll find something else to complain about, I guess. Lee won the tournament and finally achieved his dream of becoming the CEO of Mishima Zaibatsu. The first combat had a fatal bug due to its hasty development. Lee transferred the combat development project to the Mishima Research Labs, where he spent large sums of money and gathered many brilliant engineers to develop the second prototype.
Mr. Lee, the new combat prototype is finished, sir.
This one better work to spec.
Yes, combat experiments were conducted against Heihachi. 10.23 seconds into the experiment, Combat unleashed a 50-hit combination. Heihachi was completely helpless.
Excellent.
But yeah, that's all for today's video. Next episode, I don't know who I'm gonna play as yet. Maybe I'll start the story mode characters or whatever, but yeah, I do feel like my episodes have been getting a little negative as of late, so I think I've gotten all my thoughts out on all the things I want to complain about in the series. So I promise, even though I even went against my word in this video, I promise next video is when I'm gonna start, just talking about cool aspects and the things that I love about, the Tekken 4 games and the like and whatnot. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe. Make sure to check out next week's episode on Fighting Friday. But above all else, please remember to have a nice day.